Hi folks, got another beer review for you here. This is Beerjerk beer number 94. I'm reviewing it slightly out of order because it was a substitute for a beer that they ran out of in my shipment. It's the Courage Russian Imperial Stout. This is a seasonal release and this is the 2013 version. It's 10% alcohol by volume, and it's got a best before date of 2026. They release this just once a year in relatively small quantities. It is available still in New Zealand. You can get it at Liquorland for $6.99 for one of these 275ml bottles. It would suggest that it hasn't been that successful in New Zealand. Certainly the reviews on the internet suggest that it's very difficult to get hold of and sells out quite quickly. But there's no problem getting it here, and given that it's effectively $7 New Zealand and was launched at £6.50, that would suggest that it's hasn't been that successful or popular in New Zealand. But there you go. Certainly the reviews on the internet are extremely positive, and people seem to really like it. So I'm very interested to see what it's like. The website is pretty limited. There's just one article on this beer in the news section, and so you won't find a lot of information. But there's a fair bit on the internet. It's obviously popular on your Rate Beer and your Beer Advocate, so there's no problem. Bit of background about Courage. They were founded way back when by a Scottish shipping agent of French descent, John Courage, in 1787. But it's one of those companies that's been merged and bought and sold over the past couple of hundred years, and it now is a sub-brand of an English company called Wells and Young. They've reinstated several of the historic Courage beers in their Bedfordshire brewery, and this is supposedly the original recipe for the 18th century that Catherine the Great of Russia liked. Courage actually stopped brewing this in 1993, so you'll see the odd review of the 1993 version, which people have cellared. Because it keeps for so long, people are quite happy to stick it away in their cupboards or their cellars for 10 years and then bring it out and try it. But they revived it in 2011, and as far as I know, they made a version 2011, 12 and 13, and 2013 is the most recent that I've seen. They had a master brewer, Jim Robertson, who was the last guy to make it in the previous century, so back in 1993, and he found the original recipe and revived it. He says crafting the beer is a meticulous process which had to be adopted to work in a modern automated brewery. Its unique flavour is created with large amounts of raw ingredients, double the amounts you'd find in a regular beer, and they also mature each brew for at least 5 months in accordance with the original recipe. It's an intricate brewing process that means we can only produce a limited number of bottles each year. And I think he was talking about the 2011 version, and supposedly they only made 16,000 bottles. They reckon the flavours of the beer will continue to develop over many years, and this bottle I've obviously had that I've got here is 4 years old, so quite unusual. Normally a 4-year-old, a beer that had been in the bottle for 4 years old would be well past its best before date. Supposedly it lasts for 10 or more years. What's in it? They say that there's chocolate, amber and pale ale malts, some Herzbrucker and Styrian Goldings hops, excuse my pronunciation there if I've butchered that, and accredited mineral water from the brewery's own well. And they also make the point that there's a lot of the ingredients. They reckon there's twice as much hops and malt as goes into a standard beer. So let's open it up and see what we can find. Just a little bit of smoke there. I'm using a wine glass this time because they say that you need that to be able to savour the aromas. So here we go. I've seen a couple of these poured. Some of them seem to have next to no head, others of them have quite a solid head. This one's got just about a little finger. I could have got more if I'd poured it in straight down the glass, but I poured it in sideways. So let's have a sniff. And wow, you can definitely tell that this is it's not a standard beer, and it's not even a standard stout or strong stout. It smells a little bit like a cocktail where you've mixed some brandy in with a beer. You can really get a sweet smell, which is partly the alcohol, but there's also elements of a sort of chocolate fruitcake. It's really quite something else, and it's completely opaque. You just cannot see through it at all. Compared to Guinness, it's substantially darker. So I can quite well believe them that there's a fair bit gone into this. Okay, well, let's have a swig. Okay, this is definitely a beer to savour. This is not something you're going to swig and get through a whole lot of bottles of. I'm guessing that there'd be, it doesn't actually say, but I'm guessing there'd be probably close to 3 standard drinks in a bottle like this, so you certainly wouldn't want to have too many of them before you hopped in your car. The carbonation is very, very fine. There's very little bubble or carbonation as you take a swig. You do taste the alcohol, and it is velvety smooth. There's elements of sweetness, and the bitterness is really hidden behind a lot of layers of malts. That'll be those chocolate and amber malts coming through. Unlike, say, a Guinness, this is definitely a sweet stout, and it's something that you'd probably want to have as a dessert beer, perhaps with cheese and walnuts, or maybe a slice of pear, something like that after dinner. And it's probably quite appropriate to be drinking it now. We're in the middle of winter here. This is actually quite a warm day. We're close to 20 degrees, but we have had frosts, and this will definitely warm the cockles of your heart. So what's the conclusion here? I think if you're one of the modern craft beer enthusiasts who is very keen on your IPAs, your double IPAs and what have you, this may be exactly what you don't want. But if you've got any interest in higher alcohol dark beers, particularly stouts, or if you've tried an Imperial Russian stout and haven't enjoyed it, found it a bit harsh, I'd highly recommend that you give this a go, particularly if you can get it for the price that it's available for in New Zealand, around that $7 New Zealand dollars a bottle. That seems to be quite a bargain compared to the prices I've seen it available for in both the US and the UK. It's obviously not what you'd call a session beer, and it's definitely not an everyday beer, given the alcohol content and the cost. But it's something that's well worth trying, and I'd give it I'll give it 18 out of 20. Highly recommended, and yeah, hope you enjoy it. Drink well, and thanks for watching. Cheers.